Today we asked the question, would you ride a wooden surfboard? A local surfboard shaper got in touch with me after one of my other videos and he said, James, I've got a wooden Twinzer with asymmetrical fins, would you like to try it? So I said yes, and VJ dropped off this lovely belt surfboard for me to try. And I've had a few waves on it. Let's talk about this board. The last time I had a wooden craft of any type was when I was about 8, and my uncle gave me a wooden boat and half of it was rotten. So we rebuilt half of it, and I always thought the board goes better on one side. So that was my first wooden experience and my first asymmetrical experience. And here we are again, many years later, trying a wooden asymmetrical finned board to see how it goes. The brand is Belt, and this is a patch model. It's 6'6", 21.5, 2.75, and it comes in at 39 litres. The bottom of this board is actually Paulownia. That is a timber veneer, and the top of the board is a traditional fiberglass board with a Paulownia insert or inlay. And the reason this board is called patch is it's put together with bits and pieces from recycled timber. I have never ridden a timber board before, but it's very interesting for a few reasons. I was carrying this board down to the beach and I'm looking at this timber and this beautiful white contrast, and it's kind of like icing on a gingerbread, and I don't know if I should surf this thing or eat it. What you'll notice is the fins are different colors. The way it's set up is with asymmetrical fins, and you can see this red fin is a little bit further forward than the blue fin. So it's set up for a goofy foot rider, which is me, and these front fins are actually made by VJ himself out of G10 fiberglass. And you can see this forward canard is sitting a little bit further forward, just like this red fin, and this one over here is sitting a little bit further back. I have never ridden a board with asymmetrical fins. And like me, VJ is a huge fan of NVS fins. He's discovered these G10 fins and he said there's nothing better, and I agree. I really like the Twinzer actually. I think it makes sense to have a little thing, and probably the closest I've surfed to this is the Bonza, Bonza 5, and it's like this except that the fins are a bit smaller and it has a single fin, and it was really good. You do feel that jet effect. I love that VJ has made these fins himself out of G10, and these NVS fins are fantastic. I actually think Twinzer is next on my shopping list because it just makes sense. It's kind of like a twin quad. This board has quite a generous outline for the nose section. And what I noticed when I was paddling this board, I'm sitting on the board and sometimes you wrap your fingers around underneath the edge. I noticed the timber is actually quite slippery. I've never experienced that before. So that's something to be mindful of. What VJ's done quite masterfully is he's taken an EPS blank and then he puts 2 mil thick panels of Paulownia, and then he glasses over the top of it. What he says is that actually provides the board a little bit of spring and it floats quite light. Now this being EPS and timber, at 39 litres, to me it felt more like it was around a 41, 42 litre board. It actually had pretty good float and it paddles well because it's pretty flat rocketed and flat the whole way. It's kind of a disky board. And I caught a few waves on it this morning in about 1 to 2 feet conditions. I really like this eggshell effect, this pigmentation, and this beautiful tail block. A lot of work goes into these boards. I'm sure it can't be too profitable. And have a look at that nose block, it's beautiful, real craftsmanship. So how does it feel under the arm? You know, it's pretty similar, I think, to what a PU board would feel like. It's not super light, but when you put it in the water, it seems to float more like an EPS board, but it definitely feels sturdy like a PU board. So let's have a look at the bottom of this board and see what's going on with this contour. So the nose has a bit of V in it, inspired by Morris Cole. You can see that, actually a V double concave. Quite a pronounced V double concave into a single concave. And then it goes back into more of a V double. Behind the fins, another double concave, a little bit of V at the end. The rails are fairly thick foiled towards the front of the board and reasonably soft, and then they get a little bit bitey about halfway down the board and they thin out a bit towards the end. Now if you damage the board, apparently they're pretty easy to repair. You just cut out the section where you want to repair and you put a new piece of lamination of the timber, the patch, and then you glass over it, sand it back, and you're as good as new. The big question is, after testing this board, would I order one of these boards, or would I surf this board by choice when the next good waves come? So when I was surfing this board, here's what I noticed. It was pretty easy to paddle. It felt okay to sit on. Even though it's a lower volume board than I would normally ride, it felt pretty good because of that EPS core and the timber. I feel like that is making it float quite well. It took off fine. I got some lefts. I got 3 lefts and 2 rights, and I'm a goofy footer. So the lefts actually, this is really interesting and I've never experienced this. The lefts, I actually bogged the nose down a bit on my turns. So it felt like the nose, it was a bit too flat or a bit too wide, a bit catchy. And then when I took off on my right-handers, on my backhand, it felt really good. It actually surfs better on my backhand than my forehand. So it's kind of the opposite to what I'm used to from a regular board. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fins set up on this board. These fins, the way they're set up in an asymmetrical pattern, favor the backhand. Now that's actually pretty good where I live because there's a lot of right-handers, but it was just weird. I don't know, I feel like I actually prefer just a symmetrical board because I know what I'm dealing with and I can adjust myself to it. Maybe I should try asymmetrical again one day. The timber is nice, it's really nice, and I think it comes down to preference and style. So, would you ride a wooden board, or are you going to grab the board off the shop rack? I really think it comes down to personal preference. If you've been enjoying the mass-produced boards, the high volume boards, the ones you see everyone riding, go for it. If you want something from a local shaper that's handcrafted and made with love and feels a bit different and looks a bit different, then this is the kind of board for you. For me, I know what I like now because I've tried so many boards. So after surfing this board, am I going to grab this board the next time the waves are good, which is tomorrow morning? The answer is no. I'm actually going to grab the Wingman, and I'll make a separate video about that because after you ride that, it kind of makes it hard to ride the other boards.